There we go. It was like pressing record and immediately just start talking, even when the title screen's on.
Oh, that certainly makes it easier than figuring out an intro, right?
Well, sometimes you can't be
I
bothered.
like that.
Yeah, sometimes can't be bothered. Anyway, hello folks, welcome to another 40k Rantage. We have WhatThe40K, Kiefer is here to talk about our current topic of the day. Maka couldn't join us because the guy is in a bush somewhere teaching, and I believe he's teaching people how to survive in said bush. So good luck to him, and make sure it's all going well. Hats off to him. Hope an alligator isn't eating him somewhere. Hope he's all right. Is alligators in Australia?
I think it's
Is
crocodiles.
crocodiles? Oh, of course it
Maybe
is.
both. You know what? It's probably both,
It's probably
right?
both, and the poisonous and the camouflaged.
Probably.
Yeah, they're coming from your family. Um, so today's topic, we're going to be talking about Games Workshop don't really understand their own power levels, and Kiefer brought up a really interesting point before of, are we doing this from a lore standpoint or from a rule standpoint? And I said both. Why not both? One big thing that I come across a lot, because I have my Grey Knights are here, and obviously people talk about them all the time as the be all end all on this channel because I'm a big Grey Knight fan. So a lot of Grey Knight fans come to me and we have a little talk here and there. And the main frustration of Grey Knight fans isn't so much that they play like Eldar, because they do, or like they play like Eldar used to play when Eldar were really, really, really good, even though they're also really good now after the new codex. But moving on, is that they don't really resemble their power level in the lore. Now, in the lore, I think we can all agree that a single Grey Knight should be able to take on 4 or 5 normal Space Marines pretty handily. They're pretty good, but at the same time, there have been conflicting lore reports going out there about Grey Knights, where some Grey Knights are getting bodied by a single Space Marine. Some Grey Knights are simply normal Space Marines who are good at psychic powers and good against demons. But then there are other books that show Grey Knights as being alpha level psychers that can snap a Titan in half. This is what I mean about Games Workshop don't understand their own power levels. I don't know whether it's an issue with there's too many chefs making the broth or whatever it is that's going on, but to me it just seems a bit out there. Kiefer, do you have any armies that you would suggest on the tabletop and in lore don't match up? Literally just don't match up at all, like that you've experienced in your time in the hobby?
I think Space Marines broadly. It's sort of a boring answer, but maybe that's a good place to start, right? Like Space Marines are the poster boys. They are the power fantasy sort of baseline for superhuman space soldiers, right?
Exactly, yeah. I mean,
But
I
this
go.
meme of movie Marines has always been floated around, right? Like you have to modify the the rules. This is from a tabletop
Mhm.
game mechanics point of view, right? There's always been that idea, like, oh well, we need to add a few wounds, we need to add a few attacks to basically make a Marine represent what they would be in the lore.
Yeah, I mean, I think we in terms of actual Space Marines, I think you can dig deeper there, and that there are certain chapters who maybe adhere to the model more than others. I would have people say to me that Ultramarines are quite well rounded in that what representing in the tabletop what they do in the lore, but I don't agree. For the simple reason that video games exist, and if anyone's played Bolt Gun, you will know what I mean. A single Ultramarine going around and killing greater demons as if it's no big thing. Again, these are video games, they've got to be video gamey, but Space Marine 2 as well. Playing that, you've got 3 Ultramarines taking on greater demons and taking on chewing through Chaos Terminators as if they're made of plaster. It's not really something that is equivocal to the lore. I do agree that there can be an aspect of old men shouting at clouds here, where, stop having fun, sort of a thing. But that's not what we're here to do. We're here to just examine, like, why is it that certain factions in 40k do not resemble how they play on the tabletop and vice versa. And then we can even get into the lore aspect a little bit later on, because the lore goes way off on different tangents, but, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think there's probably something to. Sorry.
Go on, no, I was
I
finished.
think there's something to what you said about having too many chefs in the kitchen. Like that issue, right? Where you'll see it in the Horsehair, like pretty often you'll have a character, pick one, draw one, pull one from a hat, and you'll see, oh, he's depicted in a very particular way with, a certain sort of way they interact with other characters in the world. And then another author will get their hands on that character, and then you'll get a pretty drastic, differing depiction of them, right? So I think that's certainly a contributing factor. Let's say it might not be the only problem, but I think it's definitely in the stew of like what we see with like these different lore outcomes and thresholds of potency. Let's say.
Completely with you on that, and I think that is a really good way of putting it as well. Is that its potency is the big thing. That's a really good word actually to use, especially with Marines. We can stay on Marines for a little while, I think, because some of the most beloved Marine chapters tend to be the ones who are most balanced in their stories in regards to what they do and how they put on the tabletop. The Crimson Fists, for instance, a very beloved chapter. There are liked across the board. The Black Templars, again, if you read their books, if you read the Crimson Fist books, like The Fall of Rin's World, those books, and how they play on the tabletop, very similar. They're not seen as being overpowered. They take their losses against the orcs, and their entire chapter basically gets wiped out in those books, which is, tragic and also awesome, because I always say this, a character's limitations in a story are more interesting than their strengths. It's Brandon Sanderson's rule of magic, right? Your magic system that you're creating is only as interesting as its limitations. What can it not do? Why can't it do it? Why can't you just solve all your problems with magic? That's more interesting than the powers themselves.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So that's the thing with Crimson Fist. That's why they're so beloved, in my opinion. Is that, yeah, they were the first Marines, awesome, but also, they are sort of treated with care. For that reason. Black Templars as well. Black Templars are like the second big Marine chapter that came out. Do you know what I mean? I know there were others. There were Ultramarines. Everyone was out already. But the two big pushes of like iconic Marines, Crimson Fists, Black Templars, in that order, right? So you have Black Templars, and in Hell's Reach and books like that, they are shown as being fallible and silly at times. There's one Black Templar. It's a hilarious scene where like this really arrogant Black Templar bladesman just wanders off on his own, and his brother's like, "You come back here, right? We've got to kill these orcs and get back to base." And he goes off on his own. This little Gretchen jumps out, and obviously the Marine laughs contemptuously at him. The Gretchen fires a gun at him that is like a claw that just shuts his armor down, and so he just can't move. He's just there. The other Marines come around the corner and they're just kicking the absolute snot out of him on the floor. He just can't move. It's just hilarious. And he's fine. He's just annoyed more than anything. He's like, "Get him off me," that sort of a thing. That's
right.
But it's great. Like, I love that. It just shows the Black Templars in a more human light, and it's great. So those are the stories where I really do drill down into what's cool about Marines. I get the frustrations with Grey Knights, and we'll get into that in a minute. There's a lot of hatred for them because they don't seem to conform. And somebody said this to me the other day, and I was triggered for about 5 minutes until I thought about it. And he said, "You know why you don't like the Space Wolves? It's because you're very similar. Grey Knights and Space Wolves are very similar." He said, "Please explain that before I delete
elaborate."
Yeah, before I delete you from the Discord, please explain what you meant by that." I didn't do that, obviously. He said, "Well, neither of you conform to the law, or neither of you know what you are, right? The Space Wolves embrace it because they're just morons, and most of the fans are shovelheads, which is fine, which is great, it's fun. Sorry, Space Wolf fans, but you are. Whereas Grey Knights get very uppity about it. Like, no, we're fine. Leave us alone. And a lot of Grey Knight fans will say, no, we should be beating 10 Marines to 1. We should be doing this and that and the other, which isn't true, right? You've had so many conflicting reports because nobody knows what to do with the Grey Knights. They need a complete reset, the same as the Space Wolves. That's why you're similar. And I hate it because I sat there and went, yeah, I can see your point, and I don't like this mirror that's looking back at me right now.
Yeah, I can appreciate the point. It might take me a minute or so to see if I align with it, but I'm not exactly sure if I entirely agree. I can't help but might be a bit of a sidebar, but in the Space Wolves case, I can't help but feel it's just a poor result of, again, too many cooks going in different directions and doing what they want because they think the Space Wolves are rad. That's certainly the vibe I get when I look at all the different instances of Space Wolves outlandish feats or getting away without consequences, right?
I think that's the main point, isn't it? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, expand on that though, because that's a really good
because
point.
you don't have that with Grey Knights, right? You don't have that kind of blatantly. Well, maybe you would be able to tell me. Do the Grey Knights have incidents where they?
Oh yeah.
They scathe other chapters or the Inquisition and they get away with it scot-free?
Not the Inquisition, because we work for them. But
right.
in terms
so, like,
I mean, we
it's
did.
It's not the same.
No, we did slaughter a load of Sisters of Battle and cover our armor in their blood because it protected us from demons for some reason. That's one thing that happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't write that.
No, neither would I. Neither would I. Like, I'm completely with you. It's nonsense, absolute nonsense. But there we are. You know, it was a decision that was made, and that's where we were. But in terms of the actual chapters themselves, no. Like I don't think we've stepped on too many toes, but there have definitely been incidents. I mean, look at Demon Primarchs, right? Demon Primarchs are supposed to be this incredible threat, and again, we're getting into power levels again, right? There was, you know, Angron kills a load of Grey Knights, but the Grey Knights do banish him, no problem. You know, it's literally, yeah, we lost a few Grey Knights, and we traded you a few Grey Knights for a Demon Primarch of Khorne, of all things, and we beat him in close combat and banished him. That's a bit much. Now, obviously, we have Khaldor Drago beating down Mortarion one-on-one, when Khaldor Drago isn't even the Grand Master at this point, he's just a normal Grey Knight. He beats down Mortarion to the extent that he carves the name of his predecessor into his heart and then banishes him. I mean, he has Mortarion's true name, fine, but I think there's also parts of it where I'm kind of like, you're pushing what I can. You can't do that to Demon Primarchs, I'm sorry. Like, I'm a Grey Knight fan, and I would, if that was my studio, I'd say, you can't do that. I don't want people to hate the faction that I like. Can you please not do that? You know?
Yeah, there's like a lack of optics when you're writing those kind of things to take place. I don't know how you can perceive that as, unless you're just smelling your own farts, right? I don't know how you can perceive that as like, oh, people are just gonna love this, right? It's and it's like the Ragnar Blackmane Ghazghkull thing. Like, you need to like respect a character's potency in the setting, and you can't have them over achieve in a sense. Like, it has to be earned if they do. It has to be a group effort. It has to be really well set up, and the groundwork has to be laid so that, you know, when Guilliman fights Mortarion, the whole Indominus Crusade is at his back, right? And that's why he's able to win, right?
Yeah.
I think that makes it much more tasteful and digestible, rather than a 1v1 where you would expect, obviously, you know, barring divine intervention, a Demon Primarch is going to mop the floor with a standard Primarch.
Yeah.
Or a normal Grey Knight, for that matter, right? You would think.
Well, speaking of power levels in Chaos, Magnus the Red. This is something I wouldn't have minded Amber King's opinion on. Magnus the Red is a Demon Primarch, number 1, as you just mentioned there. He's also an above alpha level Psyker. This is a guy who is basically the Psyker. He's the guy. You know, he can do no wrong when it comes to psychic powers. Why doesn't he just?
Unmatched.
Yeah, but why doesn't he just insta win every fight he's in? Why does he keep losing? He lost to Guilliman. Alright, there was help from the Sisters of Silence. But we know from the Sisters of Silence's lore that, at times, their powers can only do so much. If you're a Psycho who's so powerful, you can actually override them, right? The Emperor did. The Emperor is able to do psychic powers and use around them, right? So, and Magnus is not on the Emperor's level, don't get me wrong. But as a Demon Primarch of Tzeentch, you would think he was like halfway there. He should still be casting powers when these guys are around. He shouldn't like be, you know, You're laughing
Yeah,
at them.
it's awkward because every time he gets into a fight, it's like he he has the option of using his psychic deletion magic, right, just to unmake beings in reality. But instead, he just rolls up his sleeves and he's like, "Well, I guess it's time to throw down. Let's take this old school, right?" Like, it's so dumb, and you can only, for me, anyways, I can only blame the writer, right? Like, you can't. It's almost like you can't play with Magnus. Like, he's too powerful,
Mm.
right? He's too potent of an entity, because if he's acting logically, why wouldn't he just unmake his problems, right? And then, sometimes I browse the Reddit, I browse the 40K lore subreddit, and you'll see, the meme culture seep in, where there's a lot of forgiveness around this kind of topic, where people will say, well, it's very Zinchi for Zinch to have it so that Magnus loses all the time, right? Like, it's kind of punishing him in a way. And I just, all that tells me is that Zinch sucks, and it sucks being on Team Zinch. That's all that tells me. I don't think that's a fair argument, right? It seems just like poor execution of Magnus's power level. He needs to be some end times threat, right?
You know, man,
Almost like an existential, like a hive mind kind of.
yeah.
Like, it's so oppressive, right?
It never ceases to amaze me how similar pro wrestling and 40k are. And let me explain that. I think you'll get what I mean, being an American who, is over there with it. But, you know, if you have a wrestler that you want people to care about, right? You can't give him wins every week because it gets boring and people get used to it. You also can't have him get beat and look like a weak ass every week because people would just like stop believing in him and think he's pretty lame, right? You've got to draw a balance there. You've got to have him doing cool stuff, but keep it believable, keep the motivations real, and people will start to care about it. People will start to get invested in the story, and before you know it, you've got a star in your hands, right? Exactly the same thing should happen with Primarchs and characters in general in 40k. 40k, unlike other settings, is a very get two toys and smash them together going choo choo choo, setting. Unlike every other one, you can't do it in Lord of the Rings. You can't really do it in Star Wars, right? Anything like that. But in 40k, these things are meant to fight each other. Just like in pro wrestling, your characters are meant to fight each other. So, how would you make that interesting? You keep their wins and losses relevant, and they mean something. They add to the story, right? It's not anathema to have a Demon Primarch lose a fight. No problem. But to have a Demon Primarch, like Magnus, go, do you know what? No, I'm not going to use these psychic powers. I'm going to, I'm going to do it all like this, and I'm going to try and punch Lehman Russ in the face. That'll work out well. This is going to go fine, right? Obviously, it doesn't. But they never actually explain why he does this. They never actually explain why he self-sabotages. If you're in Magnus's head and he says, you know what? I'm going to prove that I don't need my psychic powers. That would be a conceited thing to do, and it'd be a fatal flaw of Magnus that his arrogance undoes him every single time. That would be interesting. Games Workshop never lean into that, though. They never explain it. They go, no, it's just happening. Why? Show me why. Like, why does Magnus want to throw hands? Like, it's the one thing he can't do.
Yeah, if they explain why, that would certainly make it more palatable, I think.
It'd still be lame.
Though even then, if he's constantly, constantly same mistakes, it's like, man, it comes back to a theme I keep circling back to. It's like I expect more from my Primarchs. Like I can't believe that they're superior to a Space Marine, which is superior to a human, if they're not making simple calculus, like simple like cost benefit, like what serves me best in this situation for success, right?
Yeah. No.
And that's kind of like Magnus is an excellent case in point for that, because it's like in a lot of instances where, especially in the Horus Heresy, where you're like, I feel like Magnus doesn't have his thinking cap on today.
He's a great point for that. Like he is absolutely a great point. Like you get, it just doesn't seem to compute why he just decides no. But if they said, listen, I hate being Zinch's puppet, it sucks. I want to be my own guy. If they said that, I'd be like, do you know what? You go, Magnus. Yeah, all right, I'm with you. I get this. I get what you mean. Let's go there. Let's do that.
Makes it better.
Yeah, but they don't. They just don't. Like they just don't bother. They go, no, nah. You know, he just whatever. You know, he wants to throw hands. You know, they don't explain it. But anyway, there's Magnus. Anyway, there is one big character in 40k that I really wanted to touch on, because his power level and his depiction are two completely opposite different things. And I think you can actually branch this out to the rest of the Demon Primarchs too. You know, why is Mortarion struggling to beat Guilliman? It just shouldn't be a thing. He should be absolutely ragdolling Guilliman around like it's nothing. Just like, yeah, no problem. You know, I know he kills him in the end. You know, spoilers. Even though he comes back. But
yeah, he gets a literal plot armor with Guilliman. It's
Emperor Enema.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't hate it, just because I think that's probably kind of interesting for Guilliman's arc in Dark Imperium. His wrestling with the Emperor's divinity and the Emperor as a god, right? I think that's a pretty interesting thing to do with Guilliman, which is why
Me too, yeah.
I like his depiction much more and what they've done with him and bringing him back compared to someone like the Lion. Because it's like comparing apples to nothing is what that is, right?
Like, here's the thing. Now, in terms of power level, and not understanding power levels, I would argue that Guilliman is a good example of Games Workshop kind of getting it right. Like, kind of knowing what the Primarch's good at, you know, and what he's not good at. Guilliman's stories tend to revolve around him struggling to rule the Imperium, or struggling to lead the Imperium. Which I like. I don't want to see Guilliman throwing down.
Well, we've seen it, right? We've seen that in the Horus Heresy. We've seen it in the Dark Imperium, like they'll mention it here and there that, you know, you'll start a chapter, there's a fight going on, and it's just wrapping up, and he's awesome, right? You get that. It's like, that's all you need.
Well,
Give us the meaty, intriguing stuff.
Slapping around normal Marines, there's no problem, right? You know, but when there's a big threat going on, I would love Guilliman to act more like a Perturabo, where he's like, okay, yeah, screw that. Like, I'm not going anywhere near that. Everyone bombard this thing, and then I'll stab it once and kill it. You know, that kind of a thing. I would love Guilliman to do stuff like that. You know, he stopped short of that. He doesn't do that, which is unfortunate. But his actual motivations and what he does as a character actually does lean into his power level, right? You very rarely see him slapping down against Primarchs, and even when you do, there's mitigating circumstances as to why he gets away. With Magnus, it was the Sisters of Silence, even though that's a bit nonsense, but they tried. They tried.
They tried.
You know?
They tried.
You have him going up against Mortarion and eventually getting beaten down. It should have been more convincing, but there we go. There's a very good reason why he's not faced Angron. There's a very good reason why when Fulgrim comes back, he probably won't face Fulgrim either, because he would die. And Games Workshop would have to pull another Deus Ex Guilliman out of their ass to try and save him.
Yeah, do you think the real reason Angron didn't fight Guilliman is because the Lion came out instead?
I
feel like that's a huge factor, right? Like,
yeah,
they want him in the spotlight right now. So he's a new model, he's part of that campaign or whatever. And then, so he's obviously going to fight Angron, not Guilliman. That'd be, we've been there, we've done that, right? He's fought Mortarion, right? Because they came out kind of together. With Fulgrim, I don't know what we'll see, honestly. They'll probably, maybe Russ will come back and then he'll fight Russ. And maybe that's what we'll get.
I mean, yeah.
I don't know if there's anything in the wind or rumor mill or whatever for Russ being on the horizon. Probably not. Probably end of the edition or something. But
I can't. Yeah, I don't know if they're bringing back all the Primarchs. Then, you know, fair. You know, bring Russ back, I suppose. But I don't know, man. There are certain Primarchs. Fulgrim's one of them. Where Fulgrim coming back, yeah, okay, Demon Primarch, yeah, back he comes, you know. But what is there for him to do? Like who? If he comes back against Guilliman, okay, he's already beaten Guilliman once, so why would Guilliman get away with it this time? You know, that kind of a thing. It just, you're bringing back more things you can't use, in my opinion. You know, what can you use Fulgrim to do? This is why people say the Primarchs are better off staying dead or gone, because When they're dead and gone, or just disappeared, or doing their own thing in a pleasure world, we all know what that is, but doing their own thing in a pleasure world, it means that they're out of they're not your problem anymore. You don't have to justify, all right, where is he, what is he doing, and why. You don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, you have a writer's problem.
Yeah,
Once you
now
have all
they're
these
back.
characters with superlative agency. Like,
Yeah,
oh, well, what's the line up to, right?
now they're back.
Everyone's wondering.
You've got to sell that model, you know. So you've got to come up with a reason why. Why is he back? What's he doing? And this again, they're making a rod for their own back because they've said on multiple occasions, when you play in Warhammer 40,000, when you play in this game of ours, this wonderful game of ours, you, my friend, are playing in the current 40K setting, which means people who are dead don't have models anymore, and people who are alive do have models. That is complete bullshit and shouldn't be the thing, because I like Commissar Yarrick and characters like him, and you know the Space Wolves are going to start killing people off, and you're not going to be able to play them anymore. So, you know, that's just where I am with that. It's a stupid decision made by stupid people.
Oh, I'm with you. That's a stupid decision. Like, you should be
ridiculous.
able to play, you know, pre-Great Rift. There should be different eras of play. And now, honestly, like match play is so overly disproportionately served. And I know we're not really talking about competitive versus narrative, but there should be a player pack for narrative play that has these kinds of like structures inbound, where it's like, oh yeah, we can play missions from before the Great Rift, from the Bad Ab War, right? Like those kinds of areas in time.
No, I agree. I'm completely with you. So, it's just one of those things where I'm kind of disappointed by, you know, the lack of the wherewithal there. You know, they're bringing these Primarchs back, but at the same time, you know, where are we going with it? What is Fulgrim going to do now? You know,
he ain't gonna do anything, dude.
No,
I don't know. I'd be surprised if we get something to the effort of the Dark Imperium trilogy. And like, say what you will, but they tried to do something with those, you know, Gilliman and Mortarion, right? They tried to make them do something at least. And you know, there's some good in there, there's some bad in there, but you know, it's something, right? Meanwhile, Angron and the Lion is just what is that?
Well, this is
what
power levels
Magnus?
again. Okay, let's talk about the Lion, because the Lion is yes. By the way, I love when you put into Google Lionel Johnson, it autocorrects to Lionel Johnson. It just makes me laugh. Because he is actually based on a guy called Lionel Johnson, which is a poet.
Yeah.
So, in terms of the Lion, let's get into that in terms of power levels. Now, this is the case in point of a character self-neutering themselves. They're going, you know what? I shouldn't be this powerful, so I'm just going to chill out on these 3 worlds here with my dudes, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to sit here and just chill. That'll be me. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to chill. That, to me, reading the Mike Brooks book, and by the way, thank you, Mike Brooks, for keeping your politics out of that book. Thank you. It was a nice surprise. By and large, moving on. Reading that book, I was extremely disappointed in what the Lion got up to. You know, he comes back and he says, that sucks. Why am I in this forest? Right, let's get out of this forest. I'm on this world. Right, I'm on this world. There's one of my sons. Ah, you're a traitor. No, I'm not. Okay, guess you're not. Are there more like you? I think so. Right, let's go and find them then. And that's basically it. That's the story. They even tried to interject that the Lion might die at the end with some, like, Chaos Sorcerer. And, you know, like, guy, get off the fucking pot. You're not killing Lionel Johnson, let's be honest with you. I'm sitting there feeling sorry for this guy when he's giving his bad guy speech, and I was like, dude, you're already dead. It's Lionel Johnson, you're already dead. Like, you know, come on. The Horus Heresy got that right, because there were other Primarchs there, and we knew people weren't going to die. But I would have loved, it would have been amazing to have a Horus Heresy where they went, right at the start of the series, hey, all bets are off. Whatever you think 40k lore is, we're resetting it. We're going to start writing the Horus Heresy, and Horus might die in the first 3 books. We don't know where this is going to go. That would have been exciting. You know what I mean? That I would have been like really up for that. And they should have done that. Even if you keep everything the
like
same,
a real
you can
a real
still.
subversion.
Yeah.
Because like we've always had this idea that everything we've been told is like unreliable narration, lost to time, it's been fabricated or
Yeah.
propaganda, right? That's always kind of been in the background with all bits of lore, right? That potential, I mean. So then if they launched the Horus Heresy and it was off script, so to speak, like not just leading to the outcome that we are expecting it to, that could have been very, very interesting. Do you think that'd be less successful?
No,
Or
I
more
think it'd be more.
successful?
I think it'd be more. I think people are like, oh wow, what's going to happen? You know, or what are they going to change? You know, because at the end of the day, in current 40k lore, all the Primarchs are just gone. So what you don't need to adhere to anything. You can just say, well, how did they end up gone? Right. Well, now we're writing Horus Heresy novels. Here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, we're retconning it. We're changing it. Would I trust Games Workshop to do that well? No. But you know, it's what I would have done.
It might be easy. It might be easier to get your Primarchs to not make the stupid decisions that I kind of loathe, right? Like you might be able to like have them.
Phallus sword.
Yeah, well, it's all over. Like, there's so many examples. Like, even just going back to Magna, because we just spoke about him. It's like, yeah, you probably don't have to have him act like an idiot because you must have him do X, Y, Z at this point in the story, right? Like, you don't have to force these Primarchs into positions that, Ferrus Vanus has to be a bit too emotional, a bit too unpragmatic. You can't make rational decisions, right? You don't have to force them down these paths, right? So I kind of, for that potential, I like what you're laying out.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I would have done. In terms of power levels, then, you know, you can, if you do that with Horus Heresy, you can sort of gauge where everyone is, and then set it up, and then move, and a nice clean slate from there. But in terms of, you know, power levels for people like Lionel Johnson, I just think that they are holding themselves back for the sake of the narrative, and nothing else. There is no reason why the Lion can't come back and go, right, where are my dudes? Right, well, I'm getting the Legion together. What's all this? Why are you all different colours? That's retarded. We're not doing that, right? Paint your armour.
Yeah.
Where's the black? Why'd you go green? Stupid. That's
why'd you go green? Yeah, I don't know.
Right, stupid. Like, it was cool. We were all black, we're all red, and checkered patterns. That's what we're doing now, alright? Cool.
Yeah.
And those of you who don't want to do that, you're staying fallen, and we're going to kill you, because black is cool, green is not. So, like, that's literally what he should have done. He should have just come back and gone, yeah, we're doing the Legion again now. What? Mm-hmm. What about all my green models? Repaint them. No, I'm sorry. No, I don't mean that. I do like the Dark Angels colours. I'd say maybe just like we'll organise you into the younger sons or something. You know, we'll organise you.
Well, yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Squires,
I get what you're saying. It's because they could have even had him come back and create some initiative. They don't have to go into the details, but to even just say the Lion he has a mission. And this is what's going on. Like that, even that would be nice, right?
The Lion
right now
we're just kind
of waiting. Sorry.
The Lion should not be coloring himself green. He should be in black. Like he should be in black and red.
Well, they painted him as black as they could with that green. You can tell, right? They really tried to kind of ride the line. Yeah. But you know what? Like if my Dark Angels lore is, if I'm recalling correctly, I believe they essentially are a secret legion run by Azrael, right? So that the groundwork is all there, right? So the Lion, if a Primarch comes back, you have to have him reunite with the first founding chapter, set things in order which have fallen out of place because of their absence, right? You have to do a little bit of reformation, I think. That's probably likely to happen. You didn't get that with Gilliman because Ultramarines are awesome, whatever. It's just what it is. There's no flaws, right? They're organized and diligent, not XYZ. But for the Dark Angels, there's a little bit of cringe that needs to be tempered, I think. And then, the template is right there. Just have him come back, and then you give this character the Lion, that is supremely powerful and is an actor with, like, again, tremendous agency, as all these Primarchs should be. And that power level needs to be respected, and at least have them set, like, that book should end with a mission being laid out, Gilliman returns. He's like, we're going to start the Indomitus Crusade. That's what we're going to be doing, right? The Lion should have some initiative with his Legion, right? We're reestablishing the Legion, right?
Mm.
And people can be like, ooh, I wonder if that's gonna conflict with what Gilliman's doing or the High Lords or whatever. It's like, yeah, cool, speculate, whatever. But the Lions should have like a mission statement, essentially. Like we should know. Unless I'm out of the loop, I don't believe there's been anything
No,
specified around the
no,
Lion
he wants
and
to.
like his current pursuits. Like
He
what is he?
wants
What's
to.
he doing?
Yeah, he's creating a protectorate, like a small protectorate of worlds that he's gonna just look after. That's his modus operandi in the books, right? So he comes back and he's like, okay, I'm gonna take over these worlds. They're now under the Lion's protection, and the chap that needs to come back to me, and we're gonna go and find the Fallen and sort that shit out, and everything's gonna be fine. And then it just stops. Then it just ends. So that's what he's doing. So they're kind of trying to have the cake and eat it. They're trying to give him something to do, but not really. In my opinion, you know, if you're going to have Primarchs come back, they've got to come back. The fact that Lionel Johnson hasn't even spoken to Gilliman yet is a massive neutering. It's a self-neutering of this character. This character is a fulcrum around which the entire Imperium should spin, right? You know, it should be, you know, that the Lion should come back and go, right, you want to rule? Fine. I will be your champion. Right? That's what I will be then. If the Lion has truly changed and wants to, like, get on with people, he would come back to Gilliman and go, you're doing as decent a job as anyone can do. We don't have Father here now. Fine. I will fight for the Imperium. I will be the champion. I am now your paladin. I'm your executioner. And he goes around and solves problems.
Yeah,
so
that's the arc, I feel.
That's where we should be.
Right?
We should be on book 3 by now. Like, literally. We
like
should
you have,
be on, you know.
That's all been set up from the Unremembered Empire stuff,
yeah.
right? Where they butt heads, they're conflicting.
Exactly.
And then you want the reunion to be like, okay, things are so bad, you know, that's how Grimdark should be. Things are so bad in the galaxy, you know. You're pulled from every angle, Gilliman. I'm down to just let's set this right?
Yeah.
Like I'll cooperate.
That's it. So
because he's of sound mind, because he's a Primarch, and he can rationalize the situation, and he can make a good decision, right? That's all he wants.
They don't understand their own power levels. Like they don't understand, and power levels is in skills too. So what are Gilliman's skills? Gilliman is a good, you know, administrator and ruler. That's what he should be doing. What are Lionel Johnson's skills? He's a fucking badass general and warrior. He's an eradicator. You know, that's what he does. He's what... I love the juxtaposition between Leman Russ and the Lion. Whereas, like, the Leman Russ is a cultured, nice person pretending to be a barbarian. And the Lion is a absolute terrifying barbarian masquerading as a cultured, nice person. It's just like, it's a really... I love that. Like so...
That's funny.
You know, so the Lion... The Leman Russ... And this is true. Like, Games Workshop have said this in their books. Like Leman Russ is the Emperor's executioner, quote unquote. You know, he's the one who sends to make everyone knows that this person's been executed. Whereas the Lion's the one who sends if you never wanted anyone to know whether there's anyone there in the first place. He's like, no. The what? No. They died off millions of years ago. Thanks, Lion, by the way, for taking care of that problem. You know, so he's the guy who goes. He's the true executioner. He's the hidden blade who goes in and annihilates whatever it is that he's asked to do. So like, you know, I just think he's been held back. I honestly couldn't give you a reason why. Incompetence is the only one I can really settle on. Because there's literally no other reason. They want to make money. And if they want to make money, release more books about the Lion. Let us know what he's doing. And get him to see Gilliman. Get him to be the paladin of the new Imperium. Get him. You can actually have him making forays into the Dark Imperium. Just on raids. Because he's the Lion. This is what I'm doing now. It gives you an excuse to go and buy yourself a Dark Angels army, have the Lion lead it, and go and kill Xenos and whatever it is that's on the other side of the Dark Imperium. Dude, the money's there to be made. The only reason I can see why they're ignoring power levels here is just sheer incompetence. I can't really come up with anything else.
Yeah, it's an odd one because like from a world building, like from managing a status quo, right? You keep bringing back these characters of high agency. Like, you need to have them engrossed in something. They need to be attached to some quest, some agenda, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in the Lion's case, Like he could be doing any number of things, but I think at the top of everyone's list is like just go and see the Emperor for one, right?
Yeah.
Go to Terra, Forest Walk to Terra, right, and then Forest Walk to Gilliman, right? I think people want those two things to kind of they want the team to assemble, right? Even if they have to separate until some end times, right? But you want that rapport established, like Gilliman does know the Lion's back, right? It's not just some isolated book, some side story.
Mm.
I mean, I wonder if the only reason that Games Workshop doesn't pursue that is because maybe there's no incentive. Like it's more work. They already have the model, and it's already selling. People already are buying Dark Angels. It's like, what's the incentive to like for example, when Angron came out and the model range was like piss poor 5 units, right?
Mm.
Everyone was kind of like annoyed, like, oh, they're taking these units. It's so lacking compared to Death Guard's army range on release, right? But I was kind of thinking like, well, I don't know what the incentive is, right? They release a character that's beloved. It has like built-in automatic hype, and people will buy it.
Mm.
I don't know if maybe that's. I'm just speculating.
I think
Maybe
that's
the
a
reason why.
good point. Like maybe the incentive goes away when you're already selling the models. You know, when you're already making your money, maybe the incentive to build on this goes away. You know.
Yeah, like you don't have to have a good payoff. You don't have to see Gilliman reunite with Gilliman and make everything satisfying, and so you can sit around with your buds and be like, man, how awesome is what's going on right now?
Mm.
Like if you're already gonna be out of stock, right? Successful product launch, right? Why bother? Almost, right? Just make a novel, phone it in. This is an adventure Lion, right? It's his first debut novel, right? His origin story, let's say. And it doesn't really matter because people will eat it anyways.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I think one other thing I definitely wanted to touch on was the Imperial Guard in terms of power levels. Now, I don't know whether you've seen, there's been certain articles floating around about the numbers of Imperial Guard that the Imperium should be able to bring to bear. In terms of how big these worlds are, the Imperial Guard should number in their billions. They're hundreds of billions in terms of how many men they can. No, every single regiment is like 10,000 men for an entire world.
Oh, they're huge. Yeah, they're huge. They're whole planets dedicated to just.
Well, that's the power level thing. You see, this is where it is a disconnect. An entire world going to war. If all of our soldiers on Earth right now were banded together, you'd have tens of millions of soldiers, right? So why does the Imperium have worlds that are larger than Earth, with higher populations than Earth, only having 10,000 men or so in a regiment, right? This is what I mean by Games Workshop don't understand their own power levels. They don't understand what they've got. If you look at like Krieg and things, they're not. There's loads of people in the Krieg regiment. Don't get me wrong, but they should have a lot more. There should be they're the hammer of the Emperor. They should be millions per regiment. It should be an absolute logistical nightmare to get them from A to B. Right? This is why the Imperium is so well set up in terms of the lore, really, when you think about it, because there's a reason why we can't just solve all of our problems with getting this regiment from A to B, because it's so fucking massive. How do we afford the fuel? How do we get the ships there? So really, they should be the slow-moving juggernaut that eventually gets to where it's going and then puts the hammer down and wins the war, and then slowly picks up all of its equipment and moves on again. That kind of a thing. That's awesome. There are certain regiments that are a lot smaller, the Elysians and things like that. They're high-tech guys, Kasakins, dudes like that. No problem with that. Elite units and stuff. But the Cadians, dude, they should not be just showing up on different worlds all over the place. They should be in one big tide, just going, whoa, we're now on here. It took us 10 years to get here, and now we're fighting away, and then, it should be this World War nightmare of moving.
You're not wrong. I'm laughing at the comedy of it.
Yeah, it
should be this unstoppable not unstoppable force, an immovable object that once it arrives, it's like the bulwark. The Imperial bulwark is here, right?
Yes.
Because just based on their numbers.
Yeah, I mean, Lutin brought this up the other day of galaxy-ending threats that aren't galaxy-ending. Why? You know, Tyranids and all that, and he's trying to explain maybe how we can solve this problem of having these threats that are supposed to just win but don't, and it makes no sense. Dude, it's right there. Buff the numbers up of the Imperial Guard, and job done. You've done it. You've now told us why the Tyranids can't just win. Because there are hundreds of millions of these motherfuckers running around with standard issue las rifles. They just throw men at the problem until it goes away, right? That's just what they do. They lean into the ridiculousness of the numbers and the firepower of 40k. Have them just blast the Tyranids into it in a little bit of sludge whenever they turn and look at an Imperial world. They get through every now and again, but Games Workshop, literally, you don't understand your own power levels. The Imperial Guard should have the numbers and the power level to stop the Tyranids from going into certain areas, especially if you fortify certain worlds. That should be donezo, right? You know, unless an actual massive hive fleet turns up just to take that one world, which it very rarely does, you know, they should be surviving. Necrons too, right? Necrons are outnumbered by the Guard 100 to 1. I'm sorry, I don't care how many Catans you have. You know, here are my 10,000 Lemurus battle tanks firing at it. You know, like, what are you doing against that? You know, it is a logistical nightmare getting the Guard from A to B, but that should be their main weakness and the reason why you do have certain worlds falling. That makes sense. But also...
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
It's interesting, though, because, because Gilliman essentially solves the logistics problem. He's the
True.
The magic maker in that realm, right? So if Gilliman's back and he's able to wield those levers with, like, you know, never before seen efficiency, does that mean, like, oh yeah, okay, so now we can 10th edition where the Tyranids are the most existential threat ever, but we skate by, right? And on we go.
No, I'm with you. I'm definitely
That's
with
interesting.
You. No, I'm with you. I just...
Definitely makes me think, because on one hand, I don't like that everything is happening and nothing's happening, right? Like, all these threats are so dire. But the practical numbers of the Guard and, like, what they are, to your point, that is true, right? If the Guard are, you know, if a fortress world like Cadia is is what it is and is as important as it is, like, it really shouldn't fall.
No. I mean, it has now, so I don't mean anything about it.
Well, it is what it is.
But again, power levels, they don't understand. They don't understand.
Yeah, that's another great
levels.
point for power levels too.
You know, like
Cadia.
You know, Cadia is literally the capital of the Guard, if ever there was one, and it falls. That dude, unless you. Now, the one thing I liked about it is that they had the term, you know, that the planet broke before the Guard did. Okay, fair enough. You know,
It's charming. I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. Like, it's a fine thing, and that is the sentiment that they should be rolling with as well. Is that, yeah, there were so many Guardsmen there that Abaddon couldn't capture the planet. He just had to destroy it. Okay, I'm with you on that one. You know, that's the one I'm going to give them that win, because I think that is a good thing to say. But they never lean in and explain why. You never hear from Abaddon going, we can't take this world. There's too many of them. There is too many of them. Like I have maybe, 50,000 Space Marines? That's a lot, but, like, that's a small legion, essentially. You know, that's what I've got to hand. And they've got, 5 million Guardsmen? 10 million Guardsmen? I think that's conservative as an estimate. An entire world dedicated to war and being in the regiment. An entire... hang on. I'm gonna just... Let me just talk amongst yourselves. I'm gonna Google this.
Yeah, well, you'd also think that, like, while you Google, I guess eat up the dead air. Like, you would think that if Abaddon is gonna, you know, do the analysis, walk us through his position, how it's just not practical to take over Cadia, right? We have to destroy it, right? We have to go with the Exterminatus route.
Well,
that would actually give us a bit of oh, sorry, what's up?
I just found the damning. Here we go. They don't understand their own power levels. Cadia has a population of 850 million people, which is kind of low when you think about it. But anyway, a significant portion of the population, approximately 71.75%, was under arms, including the PDF, Planetary Defense Force, and the Imperial Guard, which equates to around 600 million well-trained, well-equipped soldiers ready at all times to battle chaos. And that's one.
Yeah.
That is a small, in terms of a hive world, that is not, like a world, that is not very high numbers.
It's very small, yeah.
Yeah, that's conservative. Think about on Earth now, we have 7 billion people, there or thereabouts, right? You take 60% of them, and let's make them, in the army, we are now have an army of billions, multiple billions. Like 600 million people against 50 to 100,000 Space Marines. I don't care. The people are winning. We are just going to run at them and jump on them until they die. And we're Cadians, by the way. We're brought up to do this. Right? We are brought up to fight and do this.
Yeah, they're fairly well skilled. Even by Imperial Guard standards. And I guess you might have, naysayers or people who refute this argument, like, well, Abaddon actually isn't just Space Marines, it's Renegades, it's Heretics, it's Traitor Guard. Well, the same extends to the Imperial side, right? It scales up pretty much at the same rate, right?
On your point, you're right. On your point, military training. The remaining 29% of the population of Cadia had undergone at least some basic military training and would have been able to fight. Literally what you just said. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're gonna have you would assume a fortress world like Cadia is so important, right? The bulwark against the Eye of Terror, like that's gonna have layers of defense around it, comparable, probably, maybe not to the same degree as Terra, but similarly structured for its defense, right? Because it's too vital of a world, right? And so that's what Abaddon's siege on Cadia should have been. It should have been breaking through those outer defenses, so Exterminatus now becomes an option.
Yes. Oh, that'd be so
I
epic.
think that would have given so much more of a visceral kind of, for lack of a better phrase, like an on the ground point of view of Abaddon's struggle and the achievement that means, right? Because if Cadia is so hard to crack, you can't even get close, but if we break through all the defenses, we have to work to open up the opportunity to just destroy the planet outright. I think it becomes much more tasteful and kind of a win, so to speak.
It's a clever way to do it. And again, we're not saying Cadia should not have fallen. That's not what we're saying. I think, all right, fine. If you're doing it, there are ways to do it, as Kaifa just said. There are ways to do it. I need to get my Blackstone fortresses to the world so I can destroy it. To do that, I need to cut through all this chaff. Yeah, brilliant. And you end up doing it, and it's fine, and you destroy the world because you can't take it. You don't even try, because there's 850 million psychos on there, ready to throw themselves on all your grenades. So what would be the point? There's a very good reason why the US dropped the nuclear bomb on Japan, because they knew invading would basically cripple them for the next 50 years, because the Japanese were mental and were ready to just run at them with pitchforks and things. You'd save millions of lives by making this very controversial decision, this very 40K decision, right? As much as I think nuclear war is evil and should never be used, but there we go. It was used once for the same reasons that Abaddon should have been taking that option against Cadia. You want to break Cadia, right, to get the gate open to
Yeah, it's desperate. It's desperate times. It's hard out there for War Master, right? Like Abaddon's going to do what he's got to do.
Yeah,
I think it's totally reasonable. It's fine.
And
he's a bad guy, so whatever.
He did it in the end, didn't he? Like he did it in the end. Like he did break the world in the end. But it was almost like an accidental bitter swipe rather than a tactical decision. You know what I mean? It's like, well, if I can't have it, I'm going to destroy it. It's like, well, it's kind of limp. Again, not understanding your own power levels. Abaddon's brain, right? Why doesn't it work? Like, why doesn't it function? Like, this is a guy who's been fighting in 10,000 years. Like, he should know by now.
Yeah.
I don't. I just.
Well, you know what? I've heard it on a podcast. I can't remember who to attribute the quote to, but it's something along the lines of your character's only as smart as your writers, right? It's kind of like this idea where it's like, well, yeah, Abaddon's only gonna decisions he's gonna make based on how good the ideas of the authors are, right? Or
Yeah,
how
yeah,
well constructed it is, or how long it's had to cook, maybe.
yeah.
And if you're rushing out lore updates because you have a new edition on the way, or a campaign book that has to be out by such and such date, well, you're probably gonna lose some quality.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I just think that in terms of power levels, the only one they've ever really gotten was the Emperor. You know, that's kind of the only one where they've stayed in modern 40k, where they've stayed relatively opaque, and in that opacity, they've kind of, you know,
Hmm.
walked the line quite well.
I guess because I can't play with them, right?
Yeah, they
It's
can't play.
too.
Yeah, exactly. You can't play with them, so
Yeah.
they can't turn his power levels up or down regarding on how much they want you to buy their models. And I think that's what it is. It might not be that Kings Workshop don't understand their power levels. It's that they turn them up or down depending on how much they want you to spend. You know, maybe it's
Yeah.
that.
Gilliman's back. Well, we gotta make him fight Magnus and
Exactly.
Mortyr.
Exactly.
Gotta write
Absolutely.
ourselves into a corner and then get out of it however we see fit.
Exactly.
Mm.
Well, Games Workshop don't understand their own power levels. I think we've covered that quite succinctly there in what we think and why. Um, so cheers for joining me, man. That was awesome. That was great.
Oh,
I had fun.
this is chill.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think we're going to be
I
back.
would do again.
It's a week on Wednesday, isn't it? We're doing more Grimdark Therapy.
Yeah, I believe so. The one I recorded is yet to debut, so
Okay.
I'm not sure when this video of yours that we're recording now is going to go up, but um, probably soon. And then after that, yeah, next week we'll be doing one on Macca's channel, on
Sweet.
the Outer Circle.
Excellent. So yeah, we'll be doing. I'm not sure what Macca's topic is. I'm not sure what he's doing yet. He hasn't said, has he? I don't think he said.
I think he threw out a bunch of ideas, but he didn't say which, so it'll be a bit of a surprise.
Okay. Well, we'll see you again on Grimdark Therapy. This was not Grimdark Therapy, this was a 40k rant, but we will see you on Grimdark Therapy pretty soon. Go and check out Kaifa's channel too. Give him some love over there. He does some really cool painting tutorials and things. I think you're doing Lorgar, aren't you, at the moment? Not conversion of Lorgar at the moment.
Yeah, I'm painting Artel W counts as Lorgar. It's not called Lorgar. Very important distinction, right? But
Yeah.
it's definitely apt, and it's a nice looking model. They're kind enough to send it to me, so if you guys want to check out, I have an unboxing video of it as well, where you can get a sense of like the different options and how it can go together, and a little bit of a size comparison too, so you can see how tall he is or how thick he is relative to Gilliman and the Lion.
Awesome. All right. Well, Kaifa's channel will be in the description down below. I will see you guys later on. Have a good one.
See ya.